Hi there, I'm the Mythkeeper. Welcome back to my channel. This week we're doing another religion series, and this particular episode is a little bit of a follow-on from the last episode. So last week I talked about giants, and this week I'm talking about the giant pantheon. Did you know that in the world of Pathfinder, giants have their own pantheon of gods that they worship? And these gods seem loosely inspired by Norse mythology. For example, the god of the fire giants, Zursvaater, sounds suspiciously like Surtur, who is the god of fire in Norse mythology. In any case, these are some under-celebrated, underrepresented gods. I really enjoy them, so I hope you do too. The Giant Pantheon. Last week, I talked about giants in the world of Pathfinder, and this video is kind of an add-on to that video, so I definitely recommend you check out that video before you watch this one. As I discussed, there are various subtypes of giants, and 10 prominent ones that I cover in detail in that video. These giants worship a collection of gods, and some gods are patrons to specific subtypes of giants, while others are worshipped by a cross-section of giant subtypes. To help organize this video, I'm going to quickly touch on the creation myths of the stone giants, which provides the most holistic point of view on how the various lineages of giants are connected to each other. In their oral storytelling tradition, stone giants were the first giants, descended from the Titans and the Gias. During the Age of Legend, stone giants and taiga giants became separated from each other, but not due to deific interference. Then, according to the stone giants, gods of woe intervened and corrupted some of the stone giants into frost giants and fire giants, as well as into hill giants, who would in turn devolve into marsh giants, while gods of weal intervened and empowered the first cloud giants and storm giants. So let's use that framework to cover the various gods that altered and transformed giant kind and earned their worship throughout the long millennia of Golarian's history, starting with the patron deities of the stone giants, then looking at the corrupted giants and their darker gods, and finally looking at the uplifted giants and their more neutral or good gods. Before I do that, however, I want to add a quick note about gods in the Pathfinder universe in general. Although I'm calling these giant gods, these gods are not like the Titans from whom the giants are descended. They are not a type of giant with a divine spark, but gods, like any other that I've discussed here in my Religion Guide videos. They have divine domains and extraplanar locations, some in places like Hell or Elysium or other stranger places. They accordingly do not exclusively take giant worshippers, and the interests of the divine often reach further afield than Golarion itself, so these gods may have many worshippers on many worlds, and not all of them will be giants. The reason I call them giant gods is because it's the other way around. These are the gods that form the basis of most giant religious worship. In my own group's Giantslayer campaign, for example, my dwarf character, Gungnir, whom I've mentioned once before in my deep dive video on Nermathus and Malthun, acquired a hammer called Agramosh, which was blessed by the giant god Minderhal. Gungnir started as a worshipper of Torag, but during the Clash of the Kingslayers side adventure, he learned how wrathful Torag could be towards his own people, and he became alienated from his original faith. Due to both wielding the sacred hammer and encountering Minderhal's herald, the great elder Ayu, Gungnir ended up having a pretty close relationship with the giant god Minderhal. All this is to say that even if these gods are not commonly worshipped by the smaller folk of Golarion, they could be. And even if you don't plan on worshipping them, they can still certainly shape and affect the lives of your characters. Anyway, let's get into it. The gods of the stone giants. Let's start with the stone giants, the self-proclaimed eldest of the giant subtypes. Stone giants and their cousins, the taiga giants, have an ancient culture, and according to their lore, all other giants were created from their kind. In addition to worshipping their ancestors and the spirits of the earth itself, the stone giants worshipped 4 principal deities above all others. The god Erastil, whom they call Estig the Hunter and depict as a fur-clad stone giant, the goddess Fandarra, and the gods Minderhal and Urazra. Estig the Hunter, also known as Erastil, is a god of community, hunting, and family. Like all ancient cultures, including human cultures, who dwelt in Golarion since before the Earthfall cataclysm during the Age of Serpents, Estig was central to the worship of early stone giant cultures. I won't cover more details on Estig or Erastil, because he's covered in much more detail in my Celestial Gods Part 2 video, which I'll link in the description below. Fandarra, also known as the Blood Mother, is an ancient deity worshipped by most giant tribes living in cold northern climes. Though elder stone giants are her most devoted followers, taiga giants, hill giants, and even frost giants pray to her too. Unlike some of the other gods I cover here, her followings do extend to smaller races as well, especially among the Kelid tribes of the harsh north. She is a goddess associated with both the earth and the cycle of life and death. She is also associated with caves and communities. While her contemporaries from among the gods originally worshipped as far back as the Age of Serpents, such as Erastil, have mostly moved on to embrace civilization, Fandarra has always remained content with tribal settlements and adhering to very old ways and customs. She is appeased by sacrifices and feasts in which large quantities of livestock are butchered. During times of suffering, she is said to grow even more demanding, and can only be appeased with the sacrifice of one of the tribe's own kind. She can be very beneficent towards those who are loyal to her and the old ways, however. She rewards her champions with magical bears and mammoths as guardians and companions, which are magically intelligent and can understand the giant language. Fandarra is usually depicted as a bald female stone giant wearing a crown of leaves and a dress of red mammoth fur, holding a haunch of meat in one hand and a stone tablet in the other. In her vengeful aspect, she wears a necklace of knives or arrowheads, while her fertility aspect shows her either pregnant or holding an infant in each hand. Minderhal was one of the 3 gods worshipped by the very earliest stone giant tribes during the Age of Serpents, alongside Estig and Fandarra. However, of the 3 original gods worshipped by the stone giants, worship of Minderhal has waned the most since the early time. He is believed to be the god that taught the stone giants how to work metal and stone, and he is a god associated with smithing. Minderhal is a deity that embodies the power of traditions in upholding a culture's achievements and behaviors. Also known as the Lord of Giants, the Maker, or he who makes and unmakes, Minderhal is domineering and paternalistic, believing that his way is the only right way, and that resisting change is better than accommodating it. Minderhal claims to value his worshippers as if he had crafted them from stone with his own hands, and he despises those who have turned their backs on him and communicates with his faithful through slow and weighty words, conveying the past and the future. But he turned a lot of his worshippers away from him, and is generally regarded to be an evil deity, and part of the reason for this is that he encouraged his followers to accept the yoke of their Thessalonian masters in exchange for political clout and magical might. As I mentioned in my last Giants video, the Rune Lords of ancient Thassalon enslaved the stone giants during the height of their power. Minderhal now pays the price for decisions made thousands of years ago, as many tribes of young stone giants teach his history and religion with scorn. Some evil stone giants still worship him as their primary deity, believing that the bondage he placed upon his own people was a necessary sacrifice to acquire greater power, an example they try to emulate in their own lives. But even among those more self-serving worshippers, he faces challenges from Urazra, a younger and more aggressive giant deity that has attracted many stone giants in the last 300 or 400 years. Stone giants who worship Minderhal depict him as a bearded, strong, and wise elder giant, carving his image into soft stone to capture his strength and power. Evil tribes tend to portray him with narrowed eyes, clenched hands, and a frowning mouth, representing his scrutiny, swift discipline, and admonishments. Minderhal can fight with his huge stony fists, but he prefers to use his magical crafting hammer, the weight of tradition. Minderhal instructs his followers with adages, parables, and philosophical questions that require long introspection to answer. In Minderhal's view, faith, history, knowledge, and skilled craftsmanship are valued. Superiors and existing practices should not be challenged. Minderhal has his divine domain at a place called Stone Peak in Hell, a place which I discuss in more detail in my Outer Planes video on the Hells. Urazra, also known as the Breaker of Bones or the Red Bear, promises physical rewards such as unholy strength and pain immunity to stone giants who engage in savage raids and sacrifice their captives in his name. He is a simple god of battle, brutality, and strength, and he is associated with war, ferocity, and resolve. Although relatively new, the cult of Urazra has rapidly gained popularity among stone giants with a penchant for brutality. Despite its growing popularity, the cult is divisive, even among malevolent stone giants. Some elder stone giants vehemently oppose it, arguing that it appeals to the most savage and inhumane aspects of giant nature while rejecting wisdom and civilization. Conversely, charismatic preachers of Urazra assert that willpower and strength take precedence over faith, history, knowledge, or craftsmanship. Most of Urazra's followers are young giants who prefer raiding, mutilating, and torturing over farming and crafting. Many of his worshippers are barbarians and choose the bear as their totem animal. Although worship of Urazra began among stone giant tribes, it has spread like wildfire among hill giant tribes who have always been a more savage and more brutal subtype of giant. Speaking of which, the gods of the hill and marsh giants. The origin stories of hill giant tribes are inconsistent. Many assert that they were stone giants once, who were cursed many generations ago for some transgression. An appealing tale, since it is consistent with the stories that stone giants tell on the origins of the other giants. Other tribes, however, claim that hill giants are just as old a people as the stone giants themselves, and that they were merely slumbering beneath the earth, and only stirred when dwarves breached the surface. Perhaps some hybrid version of these myths are true, and the hill giants are stone giants that delved too deeply into the earth and were corrupted by proximity to Rovagug's prison. Certainly, Rovagug, the rough beast, is among the gods most commonly worshipped by hill giants. Other gods they worship include the more violent stone giant gods, Fandarra and Urazra, whom I've already discussed. Also, in the last few hundred years, another god has risen to prominence among hill giant worshippers, and that is the ascended human Norgorber, the patron of thieves and spies. Considering Norgorber's preference for guile and cunning, this may seem an unlikely match for hill giants, who were loud, stupid, and lazy. Essentially anything but. But a cunning god like Norgorber does nothing by accident, so if he's cultivating worship among the hill giant tribes, he must have something very specific in mind for them, though what that purpose might be is anyone's guess. Norgorber is covered in more detail in my Evil Gods Part 1 video, and Rovagug is covered in more detail in my Evil Gods Part 2 video, so I won't cover them here again. However, I do want to touch on another possibility, which is that hill giants could be descended from Haggakal, the patron god of ogres. I did not cover ogres in my giant creature feature, but I'll be covering them in a future video on classic D&D monsters. And although Haggakal himself is much more often worshipped by ogres than he is by hill giants, there is some connective tissue that might link Haggakal and the first hill giants. According to a legend, Haggakal is a demigod, or rather a pair of demigods, and not necessarily a full divinity, said to be born of an unnamed ancient and malevolent god and a corrupted stone giant. The abominable ogre deity is a repulsive, rotund creature, a god of darkness and inbreeding, and is associated with the moon, with chaos, and with ferocity and strength. Ogres associate Haggakal with the moon in the night sky, and they regard the face of the moon as a great ogre visage looking down on them. According to their myths, during the waning moon, they believe that he is turned away from the world to copulate with his twin sister, who is confusingly also called Haggakal and is similar to him in both appearance and temperament. Ogres commemorate this event by engaging in pillaging and plundering, so for communities near ogre tribes, the waning moon is the most dangerous time to be out beyond the village walls. Conversely, the waxing moon signifies his sister's pregnancy with another offspring, so according to this mythology, Haggakal and his sister Haggakal have birthed many incestuously conceived half-giant children into the world of mortals. Considering how inbred most hill giant tribes are, and considering that most believe they are descended from a corrupted version of stone giants, if there is any truth at all to the ogre myths about their patron deity, it may well explain the dark origin of the hill giants as well. Dagon. It is also not known for certain what curse first spawned the marsh giants, but it is generally accepted that all marsh giants are even further debased forms of hill giants. The most likely culprit is Dagon. Dagon, also known as the Shadow in the Sea, is a god of deformity and sea monsters, and marsh giants all worship Dagon exclusively. Dagon's foul influence extends outwards from deep ocean places and twists communities living along savage coastlines or marshes. Marsh giants are among the most fervent of Dagon's land-based followers, but he is also worshipped by boggards and Sahagin, and his cult has been growing among humans living in isolated villages who secretly turn to his worship, sometimes on the promise of bountiful fishing or alien golden jewelry. I covered Dagon in more detail in my Dark Tapestry video, linked in the description below. The gods of the Frost and Fire Giants. According to the stone giants, the Frost and Fire Giants were stone giants once, who were changed by ancient deities of woe. The Frost Giants, it is said, were created by Thremyr, the first Jarl. He is a god of ice and salt, and he is associated with ice, blood, and giving tribute. Thremyr is said to be an ancient entity from a bygone era who may have remained in his slumber to this day, if not for the awakening brought about by the impact of the Starstone. This colossal frost giant is fashioned from ice and sports a beard and hair made of salt, as well as eyes and nails that resemble blue gems of icy coldness. According to the frost giants themselves, after his awakening, the giant form of Thremyr stumbled into the steaming sea, and pieces of his form flaked off and transformed into the first frost giants. Although Thremyr initially did not harbor any protective inclinations towards his offspring, he became impressed with their supplications and offerings, and he reciprocated their worship with offerings of the ancient ice magic he commanded. Thremyr is said to have a great fondness for treasure, particularly gems, mithril, silver, and platinum. With the many offerings brought to him by the first frost giants, he secreted himself away to a private demiplane, where he delights in snoozing atop his stash of loot, hidden away from mortal view. The fire giants, instead, were brought about by Zursvaater, also called the Prince of Steel. Zursvaater is a god of conquest, slavery, and weapons, and he is associated with ash, blood, and tyranny. Like Minderhal, Zursvaater is a giant god that dwells in the plane of Hell, in a hellish kingdom called Hirfelheim, that he conquered from the archdevil Moloch after he was exiled from Jotengard, where many of the other giant deities live. Despite his conquest over one of the domains of Hell, Zursvaater is actually a fairly reclusive deity who avoids interacting with most other divine beings on a regular basis. He focuses his attention instead on mortal events, urging his followers to wage war on other races and acquire slaves and resources to enhance their equipment and conduct more effective raids. He discourages fire giant clans from fighting each other, and he has been known to transfer entire settlements to prevent such conflicts. He has also subjugated a number of Hell's natural denizens, various lesser orders of devil kind, and sent them to fire giant settlements on Golarion so as to breed an elite ruling class of half-fiend kings. These half-fiend kings will typically take a half-fiend queen to be their bride, and will even share their wives with their greatest champions so as to perpetuate the power of Hell across their domain. Sculptures of Zursvaater portray him as a mighty armored fire giant, often carrying a heavy chain and wearing a closed-face helmet. An enduring myth surrounding Zursvaater concerns the forging of a great sword being welded in Zursvaater's hellish furnace. According to what they call the Prophecy of Twilight, the fire giants will help Zursvaater complete the forging of the Sword of Twilight, and with it, Zursvaater will bring about the end of the world. The gods of the cloud and storm giants. According to stone giant lore, some stone giants encountered some ancient gods of wheel, who conferred upon them great power. These became the cloud and storm giants. The gods of the cloud and storm giants mostly live in Jotengard, which can be found hovering over the skies of Elysium, one of the planes that I discuss in more detail in my Planar Cosmology Guide to the Heavens video. However, one of the gods worshipped by the cloud and storm giants should already be very familiar to you. That is, of course, the nature god Gozreh. Gozreh is a deity worshipped by various cloud and storm giant clans under different names. Storm giants worship them in their dualistic nature, naming them Hyjarth and Tourithia, while the cloud giants worship him as a singular sky god named Ioz'om. Ioz'om is so prominent in cloud giant religious practice that clan leaders will often claim to be his direct descendants. I discuss Gozreh in more detail in my Celestial Gods Part 1 video, the first religion video I ever made in this series. The rest of the gods represent the High Court of Jotengard. They are a family of deities, not unlike the Asgardian gods of Norse mythology, ruling over Jotengard, which includes an entire kingdom of celestial giants and giant petitioners. First and foremost, watching over all who dwell in Jotengard and providing her infinite wisdom to the royal court is the elder matriarch of the Pantheon, Bergelmir. Bergelmir is also known as the Mother of Memories, and she is the goddess of elders, family, and genealogy. She meticulously traces the lineage of prominent families and keeps a record of births and deaths in an enormous tome. Both storm and cloud giants are few in number on the material world and pray to Bergelmir to help them make the right matches and secure the right pairings. Cloud giants in particular look to a ruling class of giants called the oligarchs, who both study genealogical records and confer with Bergelmir to make the right matches for matrimony. Although not as old as Bergelmir, perhaps even more important in terms of the hierarchy of Jotengard, is the High Lord of Jotengard. Tjasse, also known as the Lord of Talons, is a sky god, and the High Lord of the giant Pantheon, and of Jotengard. He is a proudful god, associated with clouds, winds, mountain peaks, and giant birds. According to storm giant legend, he is the god who helped the first storm giants tame the mighty rocks that often served the storm giants as mounts. Although he is considered an elder in the Pantheon, he is not unflawed, and his legendary arrogance and the destructive power of his great anger are rightly feared by both the rest of the Pantheon and the giants that worship him. It is said he can be among the wisest of the gods when he keeps a cool head, but he can easily be riled by feelings of jealousy or vengeance. Tjasse has a daughter who is also in the Pantheon, and she is called Skode.
Second in hierarchy to Tjasse are the younger lords, Skode, whom I just mentioned, and her husband Aegirran, and they are sometimes called the princelings of Jotengard. They are a wedded couple, but are rarely found together. Aegirran, also known as the Sea Dream, is a god of the ocean, of dreams, and of great voyages. Their 3 sons are said to be the biting fangs of cold winds that bring ill tidings, while their 9 daughters are the gentle winds that bring the rain and sun that nourish both the coasts and the inland areas. Though he is a prince, Aegirran is rarely to be found in Jotengard, and is said to travel both above and below the waves of the oceans, though it is not clear if that ocean he travels is on the material plane, or if it refers to the churning roil of the maelstrom, whose savage tides abut with the shores of Elysium. On his great journeys, he is frequently accompanied by 1 or more of his 12 children, in a shell-encrusted fleet. Aegirran is wed to Skode, but because of his commitment to his long sojourns, he is frequently separated from her, typically kept apart from her, except, according to myth, during the changing of the seasons. Giants believe Aegirran protects those who travel over the ocean, and sends them dreams of their loved ones if they are faithful. So all giants offer prayers to Aegirran before departing from their homes and setting out on a long journey. Skode, also known as the Horizon Huntress, like her husband Aegirran, is rarely found at court in Jotengard, but does not travel as far afield as he does. She is a goddess of the hunt, so she frequents the rugged, treacherous lands around Jotengard, hunting mighty beasts and returning them to Jotengard to arrange great feasts. She is a goddess associated with glory, heroism, and the sun, and she is associated with beasts too, but particularly tamed beasts, or those that are active during hours of daylight. Her symbol is of a sun rising over the ocean, and giants will pray to her not just when they are out hunting, but also when they simply wish for a change of circumstance, or a metaphorical new dawn to arise. She and Aegirran have 12 children, but that large family is rarely together, since she prefers to hunt alone, and both Aegirran and her children are gods of travel and the wind, and they rarely remain in one place for too long. Finally, there is one more deity in the giant pantheon, who doesn't fit neatly into any kind of hierarchy. Sly Skrymir, he is often called. Skrymir, also dubbed the Seeker of Sunsets, is the trickster god of the giant pantheon. He is a god of riddles, wanderlust, and wit, and he is associated with magic, deception, and whimsy. According to giant lore, he is related to Bergelmir in some way, but different clans have differing perspectives on their exact relationship. Some report him to be Bergelmir's son or nephew, while others claim Skrymir is much older than he presents himself, and he is in fact a brother or cousin. Skrymir is said to wander the land in disguise, testing the wit of travelers, and sometimes rewarding them if they are able to pass a test of wits.
And that's all the gods of the giant pantheon. I hope you enjoyed discovering this little corner of the Pathfinder world with me today. If you liked what you saw, please be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to see more of this kind of content, let me know in the comments below. I'll see you next week.